What is up, investors? Back again, another stock analysis. This one again coming in by suggestions from a viewer on the channel. Leave me a comment below. I've got a nice list of stocks that I will be covering over the next week or so, but leave me a comment below if there is a stock you'd like me to cover. I'd be happy to cover it here on the channel. This time we're looking at a very thinly traded micro cap apparel company called Aritzia. This is out of Canada. And notice here, really light volume, only about 1,000 shares. So there's, even if you're not going to trade this stock, even if this is not a stock you're interested in, if you're trading like thinly covered and thinly traded stocks, I'm going to teach you some lessons here that might help you going forward, because everybody likes to pick kind of like diamonds in the roughs or stocks that aren't very well covered, because look, they can have a big move. This stock went from 14 to 19 in about like a month. But here's the thing. It went from making a 52-week high right here at 1976 to a 52-week low in like a month and a half. So there is lesson number one. When you've got these thinly traded kind of micro cap companies, set your stop loss. So, it's very conceivable that you bought this stock maybe at $12. Boom, it rallies to 19. You want to start setting your stop loss. Maybe you set it down here at 14. Maybe you set it so you break even on the trade, just so you don't lose any money. But don't let yourself lose all this momentum in the stock. Now, it has rallied back. It's rallied back to this kind of what I would call kind of a demand zone for the shares. You see here, there's a long stretch where the shares, traded kind of in a pretty tight range. So a lot of buyers really accumulated the stock here, and that's kind of the natural kind of pull point. Now, I think that's going to, cause like a point of resistance for this stock. It'd be nice to see it kind of break out and then maybe trade chop back into this range. It's going to take a lot for it to get back up to these highs of $19. So we'll take a look at some other stuff here. First of all, I just wanted to go to the website. So whenever you're checking out a new company, I honestly had no idea about this company. I'm obviously not a customer. They sell mainly women's clothing. I think they've jumped a little bit into men. First thing I noticed, and this is just kind of anecdotal, but the photos, you notice like some models. I mean, these models are gorgeous, but aside from that, some photos that are interesting where she's holding her cell phone here. The lighting, typically you see these models, they've got this big white kind of washed out background. It's a little bit different on this site. You see like more like window light, natural light. I just think that's kind of interesting. I think it adds some uniqueness to this brand and to this website. So I kind of like that from that perspective. So that was something that stood out for me. They're selling, women's clothing and they can blend in with a lot of other brands that exist out there. But I noticed that. The other thing to notice is they sell under this kind of like parent brand, but then they have a lot of these like sub brands. So Wilfred and Sunday Best and Babaton and a couple other ones that they have. So that's what I noticed, is that they have like this parent brand, and their stores and their boutiques are under this parent brand, but they have a lot of other clothing under different brands and things like that. Now, next thing I wanted to bring to your attention, and it's probably already priced into the stock, is that the CEO projected that a 45% sale decline due to COVID-19. So this was posted just a few days ago. And so this is probably priced into the stock a little bit, but just be aware that in the coming quarters, the management is actually expecting a 45% sales decline because they had to close all their stores, as most retailers did. But, the stock market's more forward looking and things like that. And so investors are, I'm sure, are already starting to look past that. And there's also a bright side that the e-commerce sales skyrocketed. So a bunch of people got on this website and started buying clothes, which might be good for the brand going forward because more people might be shopping on this website. Now, let's jump into the numbers. So this is in Canadian dollars. I might just out of habit say dollars, but I just want to stress that this is all in Canadian dollars, and this is also in thousands. So the net revenue, here we go. We went from 874 to 980. This is like a year over year view. That's not bad. Take a look at the market cap on this company. It's I'm gonna call it $1.5 billion, and you're at almost $1 billion in sales. So this company's trading at, just, almost one time sale, a little over one time sales. So that's not too uncommon in the fashion business, because you take a look at gross profit, it's, just sub 50%, but it's not bad. It looked like it was maybe a little lower here, actually. So margins have ticked up nicely, because this is actually solid growth, and the cost of goods sold didn't tick up much. Maybe there's some tariff stuff in there. Maybe I don't know, but it looks like margins kind of expanded a little bit in the most recent year. So we've got some operating expenses, and we come down here to income operation that ticked up nicely year over year. Now we come down, let's just zoom down to the bottom line here. This is a company made $90 million for a year, and again is valued at $1 billion. I wouldn't say, there's a PE of 21, 22. I wouldn't call this like a value stock. Certainly when it was down here making its coronavirus low of about $6, $7, now we're talking more value. And so I think if you want to stick this stock on your watch list and maybe hope that it trades, I don't think these clothing retailers are going to hit these bottoms again, but this stock certainly could hit its head on this $13, $14 range and just kind of chop down and kind of chop up in here. And it's not until we start seeing some really positive news that this company really starts to bounce back. Now, they are doing a buyback, because as you see here, the shares outstanding actually have been going down, and so that has driven up earnings per share to a little bit. But as you know, if you follow this channel, I don't really look at earnings per share. It's really just net income, and then the number of shares. Is it increasing or decreasing? Those are the things that I would worry about as an investor. Now, let's come to the balance sheet, because as we saw, sales are expected to decline by 45%. Can they survive that? And to me, it appears so. They have, this cash. They have it increased year over year. They got about $117 million in cash. We saw that they actually earned some money year over year. So even if they have a bad year, they should be able to survive, a year where stores are closed, or at least another, call it maybe 8 to 10 months where the stores are maybe not running for full capacity. Not everybody is running out like they used to stores, due to the virus and things like that. Notice total assets ticked up nicely. I think most of it has to do with this right to use asset. So they must have got some kind of, maybe they got a royalty on their own brand, or maybe they pay another brand in order to use maybe their trade name or sell their clothes. That's where it appears to me where most of this gain was. So total assets at $1 billion. Let's come down here to total liabilities. We're at 704. Notice it almost tripled here. So total liabilities in the last year was 255, ticked up to 704. Most of it's coming in these lease liabilities. So maybe they opened some stores. I know they've got stores worldwide, some in here in North America, United States, Canada, and also around the world. So that's interesting that this ticked up basically from a zero all the way up to $500 million. And so that's quite a bit. We've got some long-term debt, but that stayed relatively constant. And so they're not drawing on that, at least from this view here. So, for me, buy, sell, or hold this stock. For me, I've got to take a pass on this. First of all, the volume is too low. Also, I tend to like to invest in market leading companies that are going to lead the market. Maybe in Canada, this is like a huge brand and it's more recognizable in Canada. But down here in North America, these guys are competing against, dozens and dozens of brands that are probably even more well capitalized than they are. But the lessons we can learn, if you do buy shares of a company like this or this exact company, what I would do is set some stop losses. Make sure that we're not really, this stock is chopped around quite a bit here. I don't think it's worth getting involved in that and really seeing, hey, it's great to see some big gains, but boom, you can lose them in the blink of an eye with these kind of smaller companies. So those are the things you want to think about when you invest in kind of smaller, maybe more micro cap or smaller cap companies like this, as opposed to maybe larger brands like Ralph Lauren or Lululemon or Nike or things like that. That's where I would tend to put my focus. If you are building building maybe like a fashion portfolio, or you really like the, retail sector, obviously throwing this into like a basket of other ones where, like I said, you include maybe Lululemon, Nike, Adidas, maybe even Under Armour if you want, although I wouldn't recommend that one either. So that's where I'd at. I wouldn't say this stock is cheap, trading cheap, and also, the CEO is expecting a rapid decline in sales this year. And will those come back? I think that's still a question mark. So I'd wait for those questions to be answered before I jumped in on this one. Again, if you have a stock you'd like me to cover here on the channel, please leave me a comment below. I'll gladly get to it as soon as I possibly can. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, consider subscribing. I want to thank all the subscribers and everybody that's hit that like button over the last few weeks. Really appreciate it. It definitely helps out the channel. We'll be back again this week with another stock. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck with your investments.